Alright, what's up guys? We're back in the shop today. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube. I know if you're here for the boat content and you subscribe because of that, it's coming. One day, we've just been super busy between side work with me, side work with my dad, building his own personal boats and other things like that. But today we're going to focus on something else. We're going to focus on some fabrication work. I'm going to be building a bumper for this Jeep XJ. I already took the old one off, so you don't get to see the delight of me cussing doing that. But basically I bought this Jeep with the whole intention of reselling it, but I wanted to use the chassis to design a bumper for it because that's the best way to do it, right on the car. And I'm gonna just walk you guys through the steps of how I design a bumper. Not that I'm like a genius, just making some videos, you know. The process for making a bumper is the same no matter what. And the first thing we're going to be building on this is the frame brackets. So these can be tricky or easy depending on the vehicle. I'm going to walk you guys through and show you the steps I use. But basically we're going to be tying into these 3 holes as well as this hole back here. And on the other side there's some additional holes we're going to tie into. Regardless, we're going to get started and I'll show you guys what you need to do it the way I do it. Here's the tools we're going to need to complete the job. First things first, all types of mock-up and pre-designing. It goes into CAD, cardboard assisted design. So you're gonna need some stuff like this. You can use heavier cardboard if you have it, or I prefer this. It's like real heavy, it's like real thin poster board, I guess. But it's pretty thick for what it is. It's a little bit thinner than a Pepsi box, like a soda box, but this is plenty good enough. Buy a whole pack of this. We're going to tape some together later to design bigger pieces. And this is what's going to design everything before it goes to metal. You're going to need some marking tools. I prefer like one of these. It doesn't matter. Marker, whatever it is. This is a silver streak for writing on metal. You're going to need something like that to design on this and on your metal. You're going to need a straight edge. This is a shorter one. Longer ones help too. They don't have to be like a legitimate roller. It can be a piece of angle iron or something. That works as well. Always need a square or something like that. That doubles the straight edge. Definitely gonna need scissors. That's to cut this out. Must have. Of course, you're gonna need a tape measure. There's not much you can do without a tape measure. If you got to duplicate things here. This is important. In terms of power tools, a drill. We're gonna be drilling holes, stuff like that. You might see me use different, more advanced tools throughout the video. This is just the basics. You can absolutely get by with this. We're going to be cutting a lot of metal. You're going to need an angle grinder, cut-off wheels, flap wheels. If you're doing this, you probably have some stuff you like. Use that, but you're going to need a grinder. I like to use an angle finder when I get into making the face of the bumper later. This will help out a lot. You don't really need anything this fancy. This right here works just as good. A lot of times you're just using it to duplicate angles, and this is perfect for that. This was like a few dollars at Harbor Freight. You can get away without this, just using a pattern of the angle you want, but this makes it super easy to replicate and also keep track of if you want to. Of course, most importantly, you're going to need a welder to stick this all together. If you have a little 110 job, that's fine. Like if you have a Harbor Freight flux core, you can do this no problem. It can be done. You can stick weld it if you want to. Alright, so one of the first things I'm going to do is determine where I want to tie into this Jeep at. And in this case, I know that these are the 3 holes up front. They're pretty notorious for ripping out. Like you'll actually rip the frame apart on this thing if you're just using these. So what we're going to do is tie into these bolts here for the steering box, as well as this big one. This hole here gets a big bolt and nut through it, and it also, the frame's reinforced there so it doesn't squish. So that's what we're going to tie into. The other side, we're not going to tie into these steering box bolts, but instead just the 3 front ones and the back large one. Alright, so I took the liberty to remove those bolts off camera. Next thing I'm going to do here is just basically take a rough measurement to get a piece cut out to encompass all these holes and be our front tab where our bumper's actually going to weld onto. And to do that, I'm just going to use a little piece of paper and I'm just going to draw out the basic shape of it, like real rough, and write down the values I come up with. Something like that'll work. And I should probably put the Jeep in the air for this, but I'm going to be lazy and sit here on the ground. So first thing we're going to measure is to our bottom thing, because I was gonna take this fender support off or whatever this support is, but you know, I'm building these to make, hopefully, so we're gonna leave them. We're gonna say 4.5 inches. There's no reason to make that super tight. 2 inches. Once again, no need to make that super tight. We're gonna say 2 inches over. I'm gonna say 13.5 inches will be plenty for the overall length from the bottom of the frame rail all the way up to where that top hole is, which is about 5.5 inches, really more like 5 5/8 to cut it kind of close on that hole. And we're gonna leave this extra long because you don't want to have too little on this ear out here. You know, you want to be able to make your bumper, if you want your bumper to stick out here, you know, whatever, we're gonna make it stick out probably about 9 inches. Way too long, but it's way better to cut it off than have too little. Here is my drawn out, very basic design. It's gonna look a lot different than this one's done, but this is what we're gonna start with to put on the Jeep and start trimming what we need. So as you can see, I did this, I actually built it backwards, used the factory edges on the paper because they're nice and square, and measured out this way, 13.5. Use this as the front so we can add on the length for that front piece that we're actually gonna be welding to. So I'm gonna cut this out, put it on the Jeep, and then we're gonna trace some more, trim some more, mark some holes, and then we're gonna end up with a template to transfer to metal. So once I get this close to where I want it, I'm gonna stick magnets on it. That'll hold it to the frame. Now I can do any fine tuning. I actually don't think I need to. I think this is in a pretty decent spot. So next thing we're gonna do is mark out the bolt holes, which is most important that this piece does not move. If this moves when marking out the bolt holes, none of them will line up. What I use to mark out bolt holes, a center punch. I don't actually punch them, I run them around the edge of them, and then I'll have all the round marks of where the bolts should be. So you're just gonna take the round part of the punch and run it around like that. So kind of eyeball where your bolt holes are and then just rub them out. It's kind of like an impression you do in, like, I don't know, I think you do that in art class when you're little. I'm sure you do, you know? Alright guys, so I struggled around with that for a little bit longer, but basically all the holes are marked out except for this one. It's a little bit fucked up, but we'll get that figured out. As you can see, we kind of got the circle of each one here. Some are a little bit better than others, but basically my plan is now, take those marks that we just made, you're going to measure them. So about a 1/2 inch, and then mark your center on each one. And what we're going to end up doing is just center punching these. We don't want to go all out and cut them out because it's going to be harder to transfer later. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that when we get to cutting this out of metal. And I know this is a discussion that I completely skipped over in the beginning, going over what we need. I don't know how I missed it. You're going to need a sheet of metal. If you're asking for my honest advice, go to your local steel supplier, buy a full sheet of 3/16. Around me, it's about $120 for a full sheet, and that's more than enough to do a bumper. You can probably make about 3 bumpers out of a full sheet, 2 to 3 bumpers depending on the design. When it comes to laying this piece of paper out, I'm just gonna lay it on here where I want it. If you notice, what I'm doing here is using the factory edge of the steel. Whenever I can, that's what I like to do. This factory edge is generally pretty true. This was sheared at the steel place. They're sheared straight. Now, another thing I looked at more on the Jeep, I do plan on fitting a winch in the front of this thing, so I need a good bit of room. So I'm actually gonna add about 2 inches to this length. So we have 11 inches past the frame rail now. Now you're gonna wanna hold this edge down as you go. I'm just gonna go around and center punch them on the marks we made. All right, now lift this off. We have all of our center punch marks and we have the basic shape. All right guys, so I got this cut just the way I wanted to cut out. I haven't cleaned it up yet. This one, I didn't want to bust out the plasma cutter for 1.5 inches, so I just scored it as deep as I could and then broke it. And we'll clean that up with a die grinder. The shape looks really good. Now I'm not gonna drill the holes yet. I'm actually gonna make the other side after we confirm that this fits. All right, so I got the 2 plates, both cut out, both clamped together. We got the ones with the dimples on top, or our marks. As you can see, there's a slight little discrepancy in the 2. Nothing to lose sleep over. Like, that's maybe a 30-second longer. This one angle ends a little bit differently. That's nothing to be worried about. If you're really anal about that slight little bit, grind it all smooth with the flap wheel until the ends are, both getting grinded down. What I'm going to do next is actually tack these 2 together. They're clamped now. That's not really enough to inspire confidence with me to drill that many holes and not have them shift. Put a tack. So as you guys can see, got all the holes drilled. I ended up using 11/16 for this and 9/16 for these. The other sizes were just too close. I'm going to use this opportunity before I grind the welds to just round up this bottom edge so they all match and touch up the edges. And then we'll grind the welds. I'll split them, check the fit, and then we'll be able to move on. Before I drill the holes in that piece is I'm going to find out what size holes we need to drill. In a perfect world, we would drill all the bolt holes to just about the exact size, but in real life that doesn't work. The holes might not all be perfectly placed, so we're gonna go up on this one. We're probably gonna use a 5/8 hole on that one. Right. These are probably about a 3/8 bolt. So I'll tell you what we're gonna do for these. These are gonna get 1/2 inch holes. All right guys, this is how I drill my bumper brackets. Like I said, I kind of building towards making a business doing this, so I'm gonna use my mag drill. Most people at home aren't going to do that. I get that. If you're going to be doing this at home, some of the best tools to use would be a 3/16 pilot bit. I would drill all of these holes first and then actually cut these apart and use a step bit to drill them, or you can step it up. But usually once you get above a 1/2 inch drill bit, it gets to be a lot, especially for a hand drill and especially for most drill presses. So as you guys can see, got all the holes drilled. I ended up using 11/16 for this and 9/16 for these. The other sizes were just too close. I'm going to use this opportunity before I grind the welds to just round up this bottom edge so they all match and touch up the edges. And then we'll grind the welds. I'll split them, check the fit, and then we'll be able to move on. Alright, so I got you guys hanging upside down on the Jeep right now. Let's actually spin this, tweak it a little bit, playing with the mount so you guys can see as much as possible. But we have one of our plates all cleaned up. You just saw me grinding the edges, making it so we don't cut the hell out of ourselves, and we're going to slide it in here. In the back. Alright, so you guys can see now. That's it. That's what the bracket is going to be. This hole, that screw will 100% catch, but it should be a little bit higher. These two could be ever so slightly higher as well. Like they're right on that edge of where I'm just not, they're gonna have to get moved up a little bit. These ones back here are all looking pretty good. Maybe this one could get moved a slight bit. And this one and this one are on the money. Now, seeing as, like I said, I'm gonna, you know, plan on making these for production. I'm gonna make a pattern of these. If you guys ever want to make one in the future, make a pattern of your bracket. And the first thing I'm gonna do on my pattern is mark that all these have to get moved about 1/8 inch up. And then the same with this one, the rest are good. So now that we have those done, we can move on to the next step. The next step is gonna be building the faceplate, the cradle for the winch in the middle, and designing the whole bumper. And we're gonna use some paper to do that first, and I'm gonna show you guys my process on that. Once again, not that I'm the do-all end-all, it's just how I do it, and this is a video on me making a bumper. So with that said, guys, that's it for this video. I'm happy you guys are tagging along with me. I really want to show off, you know, some insight that I have and some skills that I have, and hopefully pass on some knowledge to other people and help them in a process like this. And you know, even if I even watch videos like this just to learn different tricks of measuring and building and designing, it's all very helpful. So please stick with me, guys. We're going to be having more parts of this series, and I'll catch you next time.